Hello, my name is Calvin Robinson from Defund the BBC. I'm honoured today to be joined by Belinda de Lucy, long-time Twitter friend. Great to finally meet you. How are you doing?
Fantastic. It's great to finally meet you virtually, at least. Anyway, I'm a great fan and follower of yours too.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, obviously you were the Brexit Party MEP for the South East, which was an amazing accomplishment. But during that period, you must have been invited onto the BBC quite often. How was
Yeah.
your experience with that? And has that coloured how you perceive the BBC these days?
I always appreciated that they had me on for a start. I was obviously always outnumbered pretty much as a staunch Brexiteer compared to the amount of Remainers on the panel. I thought the questions were fair, but often the presenter couldn't help but show their loathing for what I was doing. And, I could see it personally in how they directed questions at me and what they were asking, that they just could not understand where I was coming from. They couldn't accept that I was sitting there as a supposedly nice, smiley, female that was sort of right on with a hard Brexit, and that came across a little bit. But to give them their due, I thought Politics Live was quite good, and I enjoyed being on it. And it's a shame because I think they're stopping the local Politics Live studio versions, and that's a shame because that was far more reflective of local areas, and they're making it more mainstream now. But it's a shame. I'm not sure if Andrew Neil's still on it, but he was one of the reasons I loved Politics Live so much. But I'm sure they've said goodbye to him.
Well,
Maybe
indeed.
he's not quite what they want anymore.
It's interesting that whenever someone says something that they identify as good from the BBC, it's something that's either recently gotten rid of or they are planning to get rid of it.
That's
Lord
very
knows
true.
what they're doing.
I got very nervous if it was a BBC interview, far more nervous than anything else, because I remember going for an interview, I think it was for BBC Radio 5, who actually are quite good. They're a little bit better than the mainstream BBC channels. And one of the girls showing me through to the green room beforehand, and she was just new there, and she was like, "I need to tell you in secret, I voted Brexit, but I can't tell anyone here. I can't tell anyone on this floor. They won't be happy with me." And I was like, "Don't worry, your secret's safe with me." But it was definitely, it definitely showed to me that there was this sense of you had to remain silent if you had any other view other than staunch Remain in the studios there, which I thought was a shame, but very telling of where the BBC was heading. And of course the BBC took on very eagerly all the language of Remain very early on, with their crashing out and hard or soft Brexit. These were terms that were never used by Brexit campaigners or voters, that were only used by Remainers to muddy the waters and make out that leaving the political institutions of the EU was somehow hard and far right and disastrous and just frighteningly horrific for anyone. And that's when I thought, gosh, the language they use, it's subtle things like that they use in interviews and they use on the radio that colour people's interpretations about Brexit. And they did that early on, and I thought that was a shame that they used that language so easily.
I think it's quite divisive, which brings me to my next point, because I saw you tweet earlier this week about the whole Adele cultural appropriation debate. And, you said that there are parties that rely on division. So
Yes.
These so-called divisions in society that are being pushed to the centre stage more and more, do you think this reflects reality of the country, or is it more clickbait being stirred up by our media?
It's absolutely clickbait. I think now everyone can be a journalist. Because of social media, you've got people, with their own little phones going off and interviewing people and bringing stories to Twitter. And so the BBC and the likes have to compete far more with getting people's attention. And of course, if there's no division and conflict, there's not enough to report on that's going to get people's emotions going. So I do think there are a few people out there whose platforms and careers rely on this constant stoking of racial divisions and identity politics. And as long as they exist, they have their platform. They're never going to be asked on any show if there isn't, a divisive racial issue to talk about. So they stoke it. And also seeing racism in everything, even when it's not there, it's exhausting for people. People are recovering from a pandemic and years of infighting over Brexit. I don't think we have the energy to fight all these culture wars, and yet the BBC and the likes are very keen to keep them going and in our face all the time. And poor Adele, and, you know, she's pretty queen woke already. I mean, she's one of the, you know, the liberals who she was definitely one of the sort of set, I would say, that's more veering to the left, and she comes out and gets, you know, annihilated by her own kind of side for a bit. But I was impressed to see David Lammy coming out actually in her defence. That was a shock.
That was interesting. He's returned to the old Lammy, it seems. But you're
Yeah.
right, you can never be woke enough, can you, for this crowd?
No, totally. But yeah, poor Adele. I mean, I don't really. Cultural appropriation is just a tool that's made up now to make people really angry at each other for no reason, as I said in my tweet. But I don't think the British public are going to buy it. We've got to keep rejecting this American influence of the culture wars over here, because it's just not the same setup.
Absolutely. And I think the BBC, they're obliged to, what's it say in their charter, help to contribute to the social cohesion and well-being of the United Kingdom. I don't think they're doing that. It seems they're more and more interested in causing rifts rather than healing or uniting the country.
And enjoying them. I think what I find interesting is that there's a sort of enjoyment of marking people out as bad and good. And if you said something 10, 15 years ago, you know, that's quite exciting for some presenters to just put them in a box and they're bad forever. They're quite unforgiving to one side of the political sphere and very forgiving to the other side of the political sphere. So there are double standards. I mean, look at the way they covered the protests, the largely peaceful protests, you know, when that you saw horses having bikes thrown into them at one of the Black Lives Matter protests, and the way they described that compared to the protest that happened, I think it was a week or two later, when it was people protesting against the desecration of our statues. So the double standards, it's been noted, and it's a shame they've gone down that way, because the BBC didn't have to. They could have remained that wonderful, strong, trusted service that it was in my day, you know, with Trevor McDonald and Moira Stewart, the newsreaders that were just so dependable. It could have stayed like that, but I think a sort of very woke minority have managed to infiltrate the top. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is the effects of that, which is double standards, and people are fed up of it.
It is double standards, and it seems to go the whole way through, doesn't it? Just last week, we had the whole Proms issue where they said they wouldn't play Rule Britannia or Land of Hope and Glory. And then they said they would play them, but only orchestral. And then they said, okay, we will play them with the lyrics, after a lot of backlash from the general public who said, no, actually, we are proud to be British, and these are part of our heritage and our culture. We want to celebrate them. But is the BBC anti-British in that aspect? Is that part of their bias?
Oh, God, yes, absolutely on that. But the thing I found concerning about what happened with the BBC and the Proms, and total respect to Lawrence Fox and Talk Radio and Daily Mail and the great British public who refused to let them overturn this wonderful tradition of ours. But what is it really saying about the BBC? What it's saying is that from now on, the public have to constantly monitor the BBC. We have to buy songs, Vera Ling and singing it. We have to make sure it gets to number one. We have to part with our money, our time, to pressure the BBC to just stick to the straight and narrow, just to try and encourage the BBC to do its job involves an awful lot of public interaction now. I mean, imagine if we just let it go. If we hadn't put up a fight, what's the next thing the BBC would have changed? And it was making a massive political statement by refusing to allow even a small choir, even a solo singer, to sing the lyrics. They were making a political statement, and then they fudged it, and then they and said it was, I think, an artistic decision, or they made up some rubbish.
Yeah.
But what they were really saying is, we don't like Middle England, we think you're all a bunch of racists, and we're going to re-educate you because Auntie knows best.
Yeah.
And preaching isn't going to cut it. We're going to have to cancel your songs and your traditions, and it takes, it's exhausting. Is this how it's going to be for the next 5-10 years, that we have to be constantly on it and interacting with the BBC to make sure it's doing its job and sticking to its impartiality, principles? If that's the case, then they should put their money where their mouth is, and if they think they reflect the British public, go to subscription.
Ooh,
put it to the test.
Interesting. So on that point, measuring whether the BBC is doing their job and if they're getting paid to do it and what business model they should take, currently we pay the BBC if we want to watch any live television, whether it's Channel 4, Sky News, whether it's foreign broadcasts, whatever it is. If it's real time and live, we're paying the BBC for the privilege to watch our TV. Is that fair in this modern day? Does that work? You know, back in the day when the BBC launched, it was all live television, but now we've got hundreds of channels. Should we be paying the BBC to watch anything, whether they're doing their job or not?
I personally don't think so. I certainly don't want to cancel the BBC. I think it's got a lot of good in it, but it doesn't do what it says on the tin anymore. So because itself has changed, it can't depend on the same amount of funding. And also the way the TV is going with Netflix and everything is modernizing. The BBC does need to modernize with it. People are cottoning on to the fact that they're being criminalized for not paying a tax towards this service that is supposed to be impartial and strong and fair and informative, and it's morphed into a different creature, and we're still having to pay also to watch other channels, but it goes to the BBC. It doesn't even make sense. I hope they reform. I cannot see them reforming in this climate. I think Mr. Davies is trying. Certainly his rhetoric is good, but I'm not sure cancelling left-wing comedy is the answer. I don't think anyone should be cancelling anything. I think they should be showing a variety of comedy and a variety of political discussions with a balanced panel. That's all people are asking for. 20 years ago, I think people were very happy to pay. Now times have changed. I think I understand people's grumbles. I mean, they're spending millions on diversity projects and yet getting old age pensioners to have to fork out their pennies to still pay for a license. This isn't the old auntie I knew and loved growing up. It's morphed into something else, a different creature, and it's not a very likable creature as it is in this current state.
I completely agree. So I want to give you two questions based on what you just said, because Lord Hall did suggest that they could move the TV license fee to a universal tax. So I'd like to know what you think about that suggestion. But also the new Director General, who you mentioned, Tim Davie, do you think he's going to take charge of this and clear out the rot, or is it too deep at this point?
Yeah, I think Tim Davie needs to do a complete staff overhaul to like cleanse it of people who actually are doing a huge disservice to the institution of the BBC. Too many political activists work at the BBC, and they have too many self-promoting, narcissistic newsreaders, if you like, that can't help but show their true colours, and that unfortunately I think goes quite deep. It's been allowed to go on for so many years. I don't think he has a lot of power to change it. I mean, he tried to by saying that he was going to, you know, mix up some right-wing comedy in or cancel left-wing comedy and make sure his staff were all impartial. But of course Gary Lineker's laughing because he's like, well, I'm freelance, I'm not staff, so I can be as biased as I like and get paid millions. And I think he's going to have a really tough job. I admire him for coming in and saying what he said, but rhetoric doesn't change anything. You need to get right to the centre of the problem and make sure they educate their staff to be impartial. And I worry that our universities and our schools are churning out young who don't believe in impartiality anymore. They believe their duty is to educate or re-educate the deplorables, you know, and these sweet little morsels of rhetoric about changing the BBC, I wonder, are just little ways of placating the plebs and, you know, keeping them sweet, when in reality, actually, the BBC's not going to change at all. And I think it's a shame. I mean, the class of 2020, it's definitely an epic fail with the BBC. They've changed their tune so much that the BBC's lost a lot of respect. And I think those who contributed to that should be held to account and maybe should consider a different job if they can't be impartial. As for the universal tax, no, I just think no, I don't think that's a good idea. For me, I think the BBC has a choice. It either reforms and sticks to its impartiality agreement and contract with the people. And even then, you know, there's still the question of whether you should pay or not. If it doesn't reform, then I think absolutely it should become subscription only. And I'm sad. I don't want a CNN and Fox situation here. I don't think many people do. I think many people really appreciated the BBC when it was a trusted, impartial service. But if it can't do its job anymore, then it needs to offer the choice back to the people.
Yeah, we just want some balance, don't we, at the end of the day?
That's all we want. We don't want to cancel anyone. I can have a good old laugh at myself, Calvin, when I listen to sort of left-wingers go for Brexiteers, you know, it's quite funny, some of it. But it just gets monotonous, the anti-Brexit, sneering at the British people, sneering at our traditions. There's a huge amount of snobbery that's infiltrated the BBC.
It's patronising, isn't it?
So patronising and very preachy and lecturing, and it's starting to infiltrate its children's programmes, I've noticed. You know, I'm not sure CB is as sweet and, you know, cartoony as it used to be. I think now there's always a political message for children. And that's, what a shame, you know.
Completely worries me when I see they want to do more in education as well, and they're pushing this whole critical race theory, and they're trying to tell white people they're privileged and black people they're oppressed, and it's very damaging for young people to be put under this pressure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've either got white kids feeling shame and not understanding what they've done wrong, and no way to atone for it. I mean, sorry for something I haven't done wrong, but that you think I've done wrong. I mean, how does that work? And how does that, children are wonderful because they never see colour. That was the whole, you know, you look at kids play and there's no division on colour because they're colourblind. They just play with whoever's fun. And now you've got all this sort of propaganda telling them, no, you're different. You're different based on your colour, because you see these white people here, they're the oppressors. You see the black people, they're always victims. And now try and be friends. I mean, what are we teaching our children?
We're teaching them to be racist, Belinda. That's what we're teaching them.
We're trying to teach them to be completely colourblind, and that you've got all these, you know, education little prods in them, whether it's from the BBC or at school, telling them, no, you have to judge someone on their colour and assess what a good person they are, or how much they have, or how good their life is on the basis of their colour. Generalising about race in any way is racist, however you put it. So I agree with you there, Calvin. I've seen the work done on that.
I love it. All right, Belinda, I've got one more question for you. So they're looking for a new chairman of the BBC. Some names have been floated around, like Andrew Neil, Nicky Morgan, and Amber Rudd. Are they just rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic at this point?
That's really well put. I think if it was Andrew Neil, it would be brilliant and try and restructure it. And he's got so much respect, I think, from the left and right, Andrew Neil, that I think he could act as a really good leader in dealing with the core. Nicky Morgan, no, I don't think. Unfortunately, I think she's very BBC in my mind. True. I mean, you could put, you know, a new head on it, but unless you change the body, unless you change the colours, because it's been going on for a couple of decades now. That's a lot you have to undo. Here's hoping that someone new and fresh can really sort out the guts and the bowels of the BBC to make it the institution we all knew and loved, you know, well, I'm older than you, you know, back in the 80s and 90s. Other than that, I can't see, I don't know what's going to happen. In this climate, I can't see it reforming. The British people just need to be constantly on the lookout to try and keep the BBC on the straight and narrow next time it mucks up.
Love that. That's a great message to end on. Responsibility and the power is with the people. Thank you very much, Belinda. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure, Calvin. Bye.